I am visiting again with the possible next mayor of Amarillo, Cole Stanley, but he has 4 people running against him.
5.
Oh, 5.
Yep,
There's 6 of you all together.
6 total. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm glad that you're here for a second interview because we didn't cover as many things as we should have in the first interview. But we didn't talk about God much in that first interview. And yet I know that you have a deep relationship with God. This is a Christian radio network.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to talk about that so that if we get talking about other things, we don't run out of time before we get to that, which is actually the most important thing.
The most important thing. So let me start from a point of principle. My faith is not a private matter. It's a public matter.
Yeah.
The only difference is I've signed up to go be a public servant and a representative.
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
No, I like it. You go ahead. So I'm an elected representative. I'm not a government official. There's a big difference in that.
There is.
So if I went down there and I took a $250,000 a year job as your government official or as an admin, I have a different role in the way of like those public tax dollars are what's funding me. I don't have those strings. I don't have those issues. I'm an elected representative. So I bring my experience. I bring my life. I bring my faith. I bring my character. I bring all my strengths and all my weaknesses to that table. And that's what you get to vote on. And I hope you're very cautious in who you select. But then once you select them, I hope you're pleased when who you selected turns out to be what you thought them to be.
Yeah.
And so from a point of faith, I think the fact that I am a strong Christian and a strong believer with an eternal mindset, that I believe that I am, living this life for all eternity. The way that I live this life, short as it is, will echo for all eternity. And I'm stuck with that. I'm accountable for the rest of eternity for what I get to do right now, which means with that eternal mindset, I'm accountable to more than just what you hear or your next election. I'm accountable to God. And so there's some things there. If you have the ability to do good and you don't do it, you're wrong.
Wow.
And so like I'm not complicit in sitting by and watching things. And I'm also not innocent when I participate in things that I know to be wrong. And so there's a great level of responsibility in that, to him whom much is given, much is required. And I'm not saying I've been given much, but I'm saying like if I'm faithful with what I've got, then God will continue to bless me and put me in places.
Yeah. Let's talk about how much authority the city council has. The city council doesn't really run the city.
Right.
But tell us about the amount of power that the city council has and what you do run.
So it does have a very large authority. So the authority is different than the structure. So the structure is a weak form of government. So we have a weak mayor and a weak council. We have a strong city manager. And what that means is we've chosen to pay a good salary to our city manager and to our assistant city managers and to build up the structure of admin down there, and then to allow for vision, guidance, policy, directives to come from the council, but not the day-to-day operations from your mayor. Now, you could have a strong mayor, and that more or less makes your mayor your manager. Our form of government is balanced in and of itself as long as you don't have a mayor that's too strong and doesn't allow the city manager or the department heads to run their own department. And so we're a little out of balance there in my perspective, and that comes from just years and years and years of being in that same seat. So it's nice to see potential new leadership and some change because that keeps us sharp and that keeps us balanced.
Every one of our council seats and the mayor's position all going to be replaced or at least reelected.
Yeah, you potentially could have 5 brand new people down there, all at once. Just from May 6th to May 7th, you got a whole new group.
Yeah, I kind of said that wrong. Actually, all 5 seats are being vacated.
They're all vacated. So, like now, the strongest likelihood is that we would have one returning. Myself or Mrs. Powell
as mayor,
and 4 new ones. But you still have the same the same possibility of a new mayor that's never served on council.
Now, this city manager, most people don't know who that is. If you said his name, they still wouldn't know who is this guy. And what can we do to be sure that that we keep him reined in? Does that make sense to word it that way?
It does. So the city council hires and fires two positions: your municipal judge and your city manager. That's it.
Okay.
Everything else is ran downstream from there. So the city manager is in charge of hiring and firing everybody else, or delegating that to the department heads and HR and all of that. Now, he's supposed to function based on policies and vision that's given to him from the council. So it's very, very important to have that one guy or that one girl in that position that is very, very good at their job. We need a very strong quarterback in that position so that the plays get ran right.
Huh. So when we started a church, there were some things that I wanted to do to remodel the facility, and then we had a sign issue that came up. We purchased an expensive sign, and so we had these rules in the city to deal with, but I wasn't dealing with the city council. I was dealing with bureaucrats.
Right. Yeah. You
so
had some
are they all under him?
They are. Yeah. Now those ordinances, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say you're dealing with a sign ordinance that is just way too restrictive.
Yeah.
And you've got an official out there telling you that you're a quarter inch out of square, and that matters for some reason down at the city. The city council could come in and say, hey, we want to withdraw this ordinance, or we want to amend it.
Yeah.
And then that city manager would carry it out.
Okay.
So that's a good example. Ordinances, policies, directives are on the city council's plate still. There's a lot of authority in that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, see, that's what we faced. Somebody was sitting there watching how frequently our sign changed to a different message, and it wasn't within the guidelines, it was changing too quickly or something.
Yeah, my perspective is just, we do a really good job at taking care of ourselves, and a government that does less is more.
Well, that's what I think, yeah.
Really small, limited government. There is a right role of government. I don't want to be totally unregulated. Law and order is important.
Yeah.
But then to the point of what is the function for public safety, streets and infrastructure, trash and hauling, things like that city services that you need. And then outside of that, let everyone live their own life and let us all get along because we can.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so do you have an agenda, or you have a plan? You have some things you want to accomplish if you're elected mayor?
I do. I've got a really good plan. And it is simple. It is back to basics. So the whole thing comes down to my first agenda item is to restore and reinstate the voice of the voter. And so your voice as a citizen, your role, your rightful role as my boss, my customer, the culture that comes along with that, that's what I'll focus on first, because that changes the dynamic in the way in which we approach everything. If that culture remains like it is, the dynamics are wrong, and ultimately we're really gonna fall short at ever serving you as our customer when you have to constantly ask our permission, or you have to constantly submit, and you have to constantly be last, and your voice doesn't matter, or we know better than you. That's number one. But then back to basics just says, let's get back to the basic foundations of the right role of government. Public safety is number one. If we don't have a safe community, then we don't have a good community. And you can't build up strong families, and you can't build up strong churches, and you can't build up strong civic functions in your community if you don't have public safety. And so it's got to be first.
Okay, now public safety makes me think of the roads in Amarillo. Why does it take so long to get a road repair? Western Street is an example where we're out, it's months. I mean, like a year seems like before they're finished with one lane, and then they go to the other lane.
Right. Yeah, and then here's the thing. It always feels like we decided to do them all at the same time.
It does.
So it's like, could you have just done Western and then done Georgia? But did you have to do them both?
Yeah.
And here's the right answer for that. It's construction. I've been in it for 25 years. It always goes slower than you want. It's a hard industry to tackle, and it just takes time, and it's a huge inconvenience. And so road construction is a must, man. We got a lot more of them we need to fix.
Yeah.
And you're going to be driving around those orange cones, and then Amarillo's going to go from 200 10,000 people to 250,000 people. And so we're going to continue to need to grow those roads too, and more traffic on them. So I don't have an answer other than managing your expectations. You know,
There was an elected official here in town. He told me a little something one time. He said, don't tell that out publicly. He didn't want it to get back to him and him have to deal with his comment. But it was when we were bringing the ball team in, and they were looking for a name for it, ended up with sod poodles. And so he said we could call it Amarillo Orange Cones to kind of match up with all this road construction.
At least he had a sense of humor about it.
Yes, he did.
That doesn't speed up construction, but it definitely make you feel a little bit better. At least they know what it's like. Yeah. I'm having to drive around them too. So, I can't tell you that I could get it to go any faster, but I could tell you we're going to make sure we get every dollar in those potholes.
Okay. What would you like to say to the audience without being prodded or questioned? Just something that you really want people to hear from you as a candidate for mayor.
Yeah. So, I'll keep it pretty simple. Like I'm invested. Everyone asks like, man, why would you want to do this? And like, you don't get paid and what makes you want to go down there and do it? I really have a passion for civic policy. I think because I know how important it is, it gives me an opportunity right now with Amarillo being in a critical stage of life. Yeah. I mean, it's very critical that we grow in the right direction, or else we're going to grow kind of deformed. And I can impact that. I can affect that. I have a good plan. It's common sense. It's logic, and it's slow. It's one step at a time, and it's with my public. We're going to do business in front of you. We're going to have our conversations. They may be messy. We may disagree, but like you're going to get to see it. And then because of that, like I'm ready to go to work. And so there's a lot of work to do, but I'm energized and rested up, and I look forward to the next 2 years if I get elected.
Yeah. I realize that when people come to speak to the council, you've got to have certain restrictions. You can't just let somebody, take it over and stand up in front of you for a half hour to 45 minutes. But people talk about how frustrating it is to want to talk to the city council and they have such restrictions. And you touched on that in our first interview. But touch on that again, because I think people want to know, how can I get this changed, or what can happen to give us a little more opportunity to say a little bit more.
Well, I believe that the Open Meetings Act and the restrictions that are there that we have to follow, I believe that they're more flexible than what we're allowing right now. Our interpretation of those is very, very rigid. And so it makes you do your public address at the beginning of the meeting, not during the meeting. So you don't get to address me when we're actually discussing it. So that's one thing that we could do that's a simple change. So like on non-consent items that we're going to put up, for a vote, and we're going to actually discuss it amongst council, being able to recognize somebody and allow them to stand and speak for a minute or 2 minutes or whatever we would allow for in the decorum and the order that we need to allow, I believe that that's fine. And the dialogue and the discussion there really functions when I look at you like you're my boss and you're my customer. And so I want your input. Now, it would affect the way in which we orchestrate our meetings and the way in which we push our agenda. So that means that I can't cook everything up months and months in advance and then bring it out to you brand new. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we all had a 3-minute discussion and decided to push it through. So that means things are going to take a longer time and that we're going to need to think through it. But that comes from a point of believing that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And there are other people that know more, and there are other people that think different. And the more people that contribute, the better. And I'm willing to try that. I know that there are people that, would hear this and be like, that'll never function. Well, I think it will. Okay.
Well, we may get the chance to find out.
Maybe so.
Do you have a web page or Facebook page?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So thank you. It's Cole Stanley for Amarillo.com.
Now, Cole is Cole?
Yep. Stanley's Stanley, and then it's FOR. It's not the number 4.
Okay.
And so you go to Cole Stanley for Amarillo.com, and you can request a sign there. That's one of the best ways to support us, and we'll come put it in your front yard or on your building or wherever. And then we've had a huge outpouring of people that are contributing. I mean, they go on and they click on that donate. And I mean, sometimes it's $100, but sometimes it's 10.
Yeah.
And you know, that $10 means the most to me, because those are people that aren't politically inclined. These are people that are like me.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, I've never given to anybody like this, but I do want to show my support. Right. What that means is like, you're investing as well. I've got my money and my time invested, and so do you. So now we're co-laborers.
Yeah.
We're working together.
All right. Hey, thank you for being here. You have given me a full interview on 2 programs now.
I love it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Cole Stanley, candidate for mayor of Amarillo, Texas. Thank you.
Appreciate you.